Hello, guys and girls. Happy Monday, and welcome back. I wanted to show you guys a couple things in our OneNote notebook before we begin the lesson. I'm looking at period 2. You can see that I created a new folder called Sectionalism in the content library. All right. You also have a new folder in your notebook. All right. So underneath those names, you can see everybody now has a new Sectionalism folder. For period 3 and the other students that have had me all year long, you have more folders, but obviously you see sectionalism down there on the bottom. And then as you look at the kids' notebooks, same deal. You see sectionalism down on the bottom. All right, so obviously you are copying today's handout, which is number 1, Missouri Compromise. You're copying that into the sectionalism folder. Now, before we start the lesson, let's talk about this unit. All right, so I want you to copy what I'm writing in the margin, in your margin. We are beginning a unit called sectionalism. All right. One of the things I talk about with sectionalism is the S, all right? One of the biggest reasons for sectionalism in the United States that will eventually lead to the Civil War is slavery. When you look at the word sectionalism, you see that root word section. All right, so when you think about the United States in sections, we're going to draw a simple United States on our worksheet. When you think about the United States in sections, we have focused a lot on the differences between the North and South. But now we're also starting to talk about this new Western section. All right, and sectionalism is all about the sectional differences. So please copy what I'm explaining in the margin on your worksheet. You're starting to see that major sectional differences between the North, the South, and the West in the United States. These sectional differences are going to lead to major problems and eventually the Civil War. So one of the first real controversial issues that leads to this sectionalism is an event known as the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Now, what I'm going to do today with you is I'm going to do the reading with you. You're going to get the assignment sent to you on Remind. There is a set of questions on page 3 that are going to be due Wednesday. All right, so after my video lesson, you can watch me do the reading with you if you like. It'll help you do the reading. You are then going to answer these 8 analysis questions on the worksheet. All right, so before we get to this map, we're going to color in this map to explain the Missouri Compromise. Let's go to the reading. All right, let me make this full screen. So the Missouri Compromise, 1820. Most white Americans agreed that westward expansion was crucial to the health of the nation. But what should be done about slavery in the West? The addition of new Western territories into the United States made slavery a major concern of national politics. Balancing the interests of slave and free states had played a role from the very start of designing the federal government at the Constitutional Convention in 1787. Important compromises sacrificed the rights of African Americans in favor of a stronger union among the states. These differences exploded once more in 1819 when Missouri petitioned to join the United States as a slave state. What they are saying here is that Missouri is asking to be admitted into the United States as a new state. And this really starts to flame those differences because Missouri is a state that wants to have slavery. All right, beginning here with number 3. In 1819, the nation contained 11 free states and 11 slave states, creating a balance in the U.S. Senate. Missouri's entrance threatened to sway this balance in favor of the slave states. The debate in Congress over the admission of Missouri was heated and bitter after Congressman James Talmadge from New York proposed that slavery be prohibited in the new state. Now let's talk about a little bit of that vocabulary. If you propose something, you are suggesting it. So a congressman from New York suggests that slavery be banned in the new state. And what he's saying is he does not think we should allow slavery in this new state, Missouri. If you zoom out on your worksheet, you're going to see this little note that I made. We're going to continue with paragraph 4 in a minute. One of the biggest factors here with the Missouri Compromise is that in 1819, you had an equal number of free states and slave states. So let's go back to the reading and then we'll discuss that balance. Paragraph number 4. The debate was especially sticky because defenders of slavery relied on its central principle of fairness. How could the Congress deny a new state the right to decide for itself whether or not to allow slavery? If Congress controlled the decision, then the new states would have fewer rights than the original ones. Henry Clay, a leading congressman, played a crucial role in coming up with a two-part solution known as the Missouri Compromise. Now, in a couple of minutes, we're going to do this map, and this last paragraph explains what we are doing in the map. A little glitch there. I apologize. Let me get back to the last paragraph. Hang on. All right, we're back. Henry Clay, a leading congressman, played a crucial role in coming up with a two-part solution known as the Missouri Compromise. First, Missouri would be admitted to the Union as a slave state, but would be balanced by the admission of Maine, a free state. Maine had long wanted to be separated from Massachusetts. Second, slavery was to be excluded. Let's highlight that word and come back to it. Slavery was to be excluded from all new states in the Louisiana Purchase, north of the southern boundary of Missouri. People on both sides of the controversy saw the compromise as deeply flawed. Nevertheless, it lasted for over 30 years until the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 determined that new states north of the boundary deserved to be able to exercise their sovereignty in favor of slavery if they choose. So if something is excluded, again, that means that you are not allowed to do something. So slavery being excluded would mean that they are not allowed to have slavery in those new states. And that really tricky and fancy word, sovereignty, that's a slavery word. Sovereignty is your right to make a decision. And so what they are saying is that the citizens in those new states would have the right to decide on their own. If you have sovereignty, you have the right to decide on your own. All right, let's get to the map. The map will help explain everything. Now, what you're seeing here on this map is a map of the United States in 1819 when... Okay, I've jumped ahead a little bit, and I began by coloring in the 11 free states and the 11 slave states. So let's take a look. The border between the green slave states and the yellow free states is going to be the border between Kentucky and Virginia. So this river, which is actually the Ohio River, makes a lot of that border between the green slave states and the yellow free states. Don't forget to include Maryland and Delaware, which are below Pennsylvania and New Jersey. That is Pennsylvania. That is New Jersey. Those were both free states. Maryland and Delaware are included with the green slave states. Maryland is here below Pennsylvania, and Delaware is that small state along the coast. All right, so now what we have, and I'm going to kind of count them off with you. We have 11 slave states in the United States in 1819, and we have 11 free states. So our 11 slave states in the South, beginning with Louisiana, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maryland is 10, and Delaware is 11. Those are your 11 slave states. Now, Florida, on the southern peninsula here, Florida was not a state yet. You can see down here that muted green, not the bright highlighter green, those are states. Florida was still a territory, which means in 1819 we owned Florida. It had not become a state yet. Now in the north, we also had 11 free states. 1, 2, 3, 4. New Jersey is 5. New York 6. Vermont and New Hampshire 7 and 8. Massachusetts 9. Connecticut 10. And then remember Rhode Island, that tiny little state there, that's 11. So the slave states and free states are a balanced number. And that was important in United States politics. Anytime the United States was voting on something in the Senate, it was a balance. They had 11 free states and 11 slave states. Is that a good thing? Sometimes. Sometimes that's a bad thing. It's like if you have, 50 Democratic senators and 50 Republican senators, a lot of laws are going to be difficult to pass if there's always a balance in the Senate. Well, that's what was going on in the United States in 1819. One of the things that they knew they did not want to do was make a decision on slavery. Yes, slavery is wrong, but they needed it. So that is why this Missouri Compromise becomes such an issue. In 1819, this territory, Missouri, is ready to be admitted to the Union. And to further confuse the issue, Missouri is right in the middle, and Missouri is asking to be admitted into the Union as a slave state. Now, can the Congress tell these people in Missouri who want slavery, no, we're not going to allow you to be admitted into the Union? They come up with a compromise. So check this out. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to color in Missouri green because Missouri was admitted into the Union as a slave state. And we're also going to label Missouri with a big M because that's the state that we're talking about here. Now, what they do to balance out the number of slave states and free states, the answer is kind of sticking out there on the upper northeast corner of the United States. They used Maine. Now, first, I'm going to use that muted beige to show you that Maine, like Michigan, Maine was a territory in the north. It was not its own state yet. At the time, Maine was part of Massachusetts. So the compromise is simple. Here's what they're going to do. They're going to make Maine a new state. Maine becomes a free state. And just like Missouri, Maine will balance out that number. And now after the Missouri Compromise, so I'm going to make Maine our 12th free state and label it Maine with an E on the end. And I'm going to label Missouri, M-I-S-S. Missouri becomes our 12th slave state. So this compromise seems like a decent solution. The Missouri Compromise. However, it ignores the real problem, which is slavery. So they have not answered the eternal question, should we be allowing slavery? Instead, they are just, appeasing everyone. Let's keep everyone happy. Let's make sure that we always add states equally so in the future we don't have to address this issue. Now let's talk about territories. They also come up with this decision in the future. I'm drawing a dotted line beneath Missouri. In the future, they decide that this line of latitude, 36 degrees 30 north, lines of latitude, that line of latitude in the future will be the border between free territories. And remember, we earned all this territory when we purchased it from France, the Louisiana Purchase territory. So all of that territory will be free territory in the future, and anything south of that line can be slave territories. So we're going to use that muted green color to show that these territories south of the line in the future can have slavery. Remember that Texas will eventually be added to the Union. And so what you can assume is that they're probably assuming as we continue to expand west, that'll be the border between slave territory, I'll use a green question mark, and free territory. I'll use one of those beige question marks. Now, at the time, all that land in the far west was Spanish territory. So we're going to take a gray highlighter, and we're just going to highlight all of that gray to show that that was Spanish territory. Now, if I went too fast, you're on a video, you can pause, you can back up, but let's just kind of review what we did. All right, the yellow highlighter shows that in 1819 we had 11 free states. The green highlighter shows that in 1819 we had 11 slave states. What's the compromise? They're going to add Missouri as a slave state, and the people in Missouri wanted slavery, so that was an easy decision. This gives them 12 slave states. And to keep everybody happy in the north, they're going to add Maine as a free state. This gives them 12 free states. Mr. Gates, what about when future states want to be added to the Union? The solution is this imaginary line of latitude. So like the Ohio River created a border between the free states and the slave states, this imaginary line of latitude in the future will be the new border between free states and slave states. It's the 3630 North line of latitude. And they are basically saying that that line will be used in the future to divide the country. Think about what we're saying. They are drawing a line, dividing the country. I don't want you to do this to your map. Look what happens because of this line. Don't do that to your map. They are beginning to divide the country. No good. Our unit, sectionalism, is the beginning of causes of the Civil War. The Missouri Compromise was not a good compromise. They're ignoring the bigger problem. They're forgetting about slavery, and they are dividing the country. All right, hopefully you can back up if I went too fast, and you can pause and keep up with the labeling. It's really important that you are marking up this map. It's almost like doing a math problem yourself. You start to see, oh, I see, you've got an even number of states. It's very divided between the free states, and let's label free and slave, north and south. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this little coloring on a Monday. Your job now is to go to the analysis questions. I don't expect paragraphs, but I do expect complete sentences. Depending on the question, maybe 1, 2, 3 sentences if they're asking you to explain something. I did number 1 for you. So number 1 is answered already. How many slave states were there in 1819? There were 11. How many free states were there in 1819? There were 11. Move on. You've basically got 8 other questions to go because number 8 on the bottom has 2 parts. All right. I'm signing off. You guys can get started on the reading. All right. Once again, the reading is on the top of today's worksheet. And answer those 8 questions. I'm giving you till Wednesday. We'll be back with a new lesson on Wednesday. All right. Have a great Monday. Adios until we meet.